It is okay to be so stressed and overwhelmed that you feel like you need to talk to someone about it. And by that, I mean going to therapy. Lately, the transition from college into post grad and working. It is okay to be so stressed and overwhelmed that you feel like you need to talk to someone about it. And by that, I mean go.
Solo.
And hello, welcome to solo playthroughs. We Satchit's in the chat already making me laugh, which is gonna be good because I don't know how many times we'll be laughing during this playthrough. We have there has to be scouts in this game, has to. In a sense, in a sense. And are we going to therapy, Greg? And I believe that's a reference to the YouTube video. I had my computer audio was not turned off, so that was the ad that came up for me because I have this video playing on a 20-second delay, and I just hadn't turned the volume off. So yeah, that's the YouTube thinks I need therapy, which YouTube's probably right. So maybe I'll go back to that ad after this playthrough. Yeah, what's up? We are playing I mean, I have so many thoughts, and I probably have never been so uh worried. Worried is not the right word. So like trying to be very thoughtful about a game. Probably since this war of mine. When this war of mine, I don't think I ever did a live stream of this war of mine, but I did probably 2 or 3 recorded playthroughs of this war of mine. And this is one of those games where you're like, is it fun? And it's like, I don't know if that's the right question, right? It's good. It's really good. It's very engaging. This war of mine deals with a fictional universe, what is all too real for too many people. And Freedom, the Underground Railroad, deals with a very dark time of history, especially American history. Not that Americans were the only ones who did slavery in the 19th century, but it went on for a long time, and the American Civil War was part of it, and the relics of slavery are still something that American society is still trying to grapple with. Well, some people are trying to grapple with, other people are trying to deny its impact. Um, so it's an interesting time to bring this game up, especially as certain states in America are trying to ban books and ban certain college level educational courses. So I do think I'm glad this game exists. I'm glad it brings some history to life. I'm glad for all that it does while giving you an engaging puzzle. This is not a playthrough where if you're looking for like high level strategies in this game, I don't think you're coming to the right place. This isn't what this video is about for me. I have played this game enough to get it on the channel. I enjoy it. I did find like kind of the base settings a little bit easy. I'm going to be playing at a harder level that I've never actually won at, but I'm think more just engaging with the material, engaging with what's going on. Um, I think is going to be the more important thing, right? And there is a level of solemnness and awareness and things about this that make me like deeply sad, but also deeply reflective. And I think that's the fact that board games can do that, and when a game does that well, I think it's worth featuring and worth talking about. I'm doing this in February. That's not by accident. It is Black History Month in America. So that is something that was important to me that I wanted to do. And this is not a game I expect I will play often, but it is a game you could probably expect to see every February at minimum. I'm going to be playing True Solo today. I do think the game does a good job balancing across player counts 1 through 4. I probably is a better game at playing a 2 or 3. I don't know if I would play it at 4, but I'm going to play it at True Solo today just to kind of get it on the channel and kind of go through the mechanics, and then on my own I want to explore playing with the co-op rules, and playing with multiple characters. There are 6 characters that come in the game, or 6 playable characters that come in the game, and only 2 or 3 seem like they're even viable for a true solo game. I am going to go with the conductor, and we'll kind of talk about a little bit of history as we go. All the cards have a little bit of flavor text. I do wish I wish the font was a little bit bigger, because woo, uh, it's hard to read. But I'm going to try to read as much of that as we can, and then just make sure that we're kind of putting some historical context to the different events and the different personalities that are represented in this game. So, Sagitt says this war of mine is a different kind of tough. To us in this part of the world, the horrors presented there hits home much more. Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. I do think it's interesting how, you know life experiences are going to really affect how you interact with a game that deals with tough subject matter. And this war of mine, yeah, that's not a personal experience of mine. That is a game though that I did sell because I found it so. I mean, I explored what I wanted to explore with that game, and I found it so tough to play, um, that I was kind of ready to move on from it. For some reason that I can't necessarily put my finger on, I'm never gonna. I don't see myself doing that with Freedom. It may be because it is so much more personal to, my country's history. And obviously I'm not black. I'm not I don't have ancestors who went through slavery. I do live in a majority black city in America, and the subject matter here, through my personal experiences and friendships I developed, and connections I've made, this is still, a very real part of day-to-day life, the realities of America's history, and how it impacts today, and some of the things that you see, some societal implications and inequalities and stuff like that. Sagitt says slavery didn't much happen where I live. Certainly not since the Roman times. The way peasantry lived in the Middle Ages was close to it, but still not to that extent. And when I was growing up, we had a war 50 kilometers from our house. Now there is one a couple hundred kilometers away. Exactly the Twom sort. I can totally see that direction to Twom. You also live in Philly. Exactly. I don't know. They also live in Philly. Um, yeah, man, it's thing. I mean, this is. I know I'm coming in a little bit solemn. I think I'm trying to prepare anyone who's like, expecting usual jolly goofy Greg. There will be some of that. I mean, it is a game, but if you don't want uncomfortable subject matter, maybe this is my content warner, right? My version of a content warning. If you don't want a tough subject matter, if you don't want politics in your games, if and that's fine. Like, but this game is going to be. I hate that phrase too. Why is this political? I mean, there's that whole question. It's become political in America. American history, especially around slavery, has become very political in America. If you don't want to engage with that with games or on your YouTube watching, I totally get that. Just, dude, watch another video. I'll be back tomorrow with Gaia Project, and that's great. This is a different kind of thing, and I wanted to set the tone for that correctly in how I opened this up. And Sajid, I appreciate your thoughts, to a great extent. So, I'm going to be playing as the conductor. I think the conductor is one of the 2 or 3 characters that play well true solo. It also seemed like a natural fit. It's a very much a Harriet Tubman like figure. For those who don't know, the Underground Railroad was basically the connection points that were used by abolitionists and people who were trying to free slaves to get slaves away from southern plantations up through the northern part of America into Canada. I am not a historian. I am not a history buff on any level. But the word conductor isn't talking about someone who's conducting a train. It was more of a metaphor for this was the railroad, this was their path, this was the track that was taken metaphorically to get into freedom and to get in places where the black men and women who were subjected to American slavery were able to taste freedom. The quotes, the reason why "keep going" and "don't ever stop" are in quotes on both the thumbnail to this video and the title of this video. Those are actually part of the same quote that is attributed to Harriet Tubman. She is the most famous most famous conductor from that time. She was responsible for freeing at least 1,000 people from slavery, if not more. And she has a lot of really interesting quotes. She's a very interesting historical figure and quite the heroine, quite the real life heroine for sure. Sadness says, wait, you were saying there's no politics in the world of Gaia? Bah, such madness. There are politics. That's a good point. Jester, hello, Greg and chat. This instrument game saw last night. I think it does this theme very well and not going into supporting slavery. And Sadness says that lady was incredible. I listened to many hours of podcast on her journey. No, very cool. All right, well, let's get this going. So, the game's pretty excellent. The rule book, specifically the rule book, is really excellent in kind of giving you the instructions on how to get through setup and whatnot. But ultimately, in a true solo game, you're going to have one of each of these tokens in each era. Now, the three different eras that you're dealing with are, and dude, this is my New York accent coming out. When I say era, it sounds like error. Just kind of roll with it. It is what it is. So we have 1800 to 1839. We have one support token. 1840 to 1859. We have one support token. And from 1860 to 1865, we have one support token. That does go to the end of the Civil War, which is considered as the end of slavery. Was it really the end of slavery? The vestiges of slavery thing is a big deal in American history and even into American politics today. It is actually, that phrase is in the American Constitution. Trying to get rid of the vestiges of slavery, how successful we've been, is a matter for intense debate, apparently. But ultimately, these three periods will mark the kind of the growing of the abolitionist movement, but also will feature the opposition to the growing of that movement as we go. There are these conductor tokens. These tokens are what the main driver of our ability to move these cubes. Each of these cubes represents a slave or a group of slaves, but I do think it's more specifically a slave. And then we are kind of moving them from the plantations along these different routes to get into Canada. As we get a slave up into Canada, we'll put that on the little chart up there to kind of keep track of how many slaves we have led successfully to freedom. We have the conductor tokens in 1800 to 1839 only cost 2 apiece. In 1840 to 1859, they cost 3 apiece, and there are 2 different types, and we'll get to that when we get to that era. And then in 1860 to 1865, there's only 1 apiece. Now, what is the significance of that? Well, if the token is white, it just comes out of the game. It's used once and then done. If a token is gray, at the time it's used, it gets placed back on the board to get reused, so the gray tokens are never removed from the game. If there is any kind of event that would remove conductor tokens, it does ignore the gray tokens. Now the setup, it tells you 3, 2, 1, and that does include the gray tokens there, so which is why we only have the gray tokens in the last era. And then we had the fundraising. Fundraising is a way to raise money because, again, this Underground Railroad stuff was expensive. We needed supplies, we needed food, we needed places to the abolitionists needed the supplies and the food to get people from the plantations up into the north, and that did take some money. So you did need to try to raise financial support to make all of this happen. And so in the first 2 eras, if you have a fundraising token, you could spend it, and it would come out of the game. So it kind of looks a little grayish. It's actually a little more greenish. Those come out of the game. So these are one-time use. And then when you spend that in the first 2 eras, you're going to get $1 per green, southern city or southern space. So everything that's green is a southern space. Everything that's blue is a northern city space, and then the whites are just like kind of other spaces. So when you spend the support tokens or the fundraising tokens from the first two eras, you're going to get $1 per green space that has a slave cube on it, right? So that could get up from 0 to 10 money. That money can be really important because, again, the support tokens up here cost $10. And I'll talk about the importance of support tokens in a second. So in the last era, this one fundraising token, you're going to get $1 per slave cube on a blue city. So these white cities don't count. It's going to be the big boxes or the circles that are blue. Now, the big boxes are important because you can have up to 4 slaves at a time in one of the big boxes. Every other space on the board can only hold 1 slave at a time. So again, using the fundraising tokens at the right time to get the max money is important. And the reason why is we are going to need to buy all 3 of these support tokens to win the game. That is 1/2 of our win condition. And I'll explain the other half in a bit. Beyond that, each of the eras has a deck of cards that is going to be the abolitionist cards that are relative to that era, relative to that time period. So there are 9 cards that pertain to the 1800 to 1839 era. One of these is gray. If you get this dude, you can make it a reserve card. So you can take Levi Coffin off the abolitionist queue and you could put it in reserve. Now there is a space for the reserve card actually on the conductor thing itself, but for space issues, I'm just kind of moving that over here. And additionally, you'll see this card. This is the card specifically for the conductor. That's supposed to go down there, but that doesn't fit on the camera, so I put it over here. And the reason why this is separate from the board is because you can flip it over to get a one-time ability, which I will explain as we go. So we have 9 cards here, including this one reserve card. Now, when you buy a reserve card, you can only have one at a time, and you could use it at any time for its ability. There are 13 cards in the middle era deck, and then there are 10 cards in the late era deck. Into these decks, we're going to add some of these opposition cards, and these opposition cards can be really quite nasty and can really make your life very difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shuffle up these 12 cards. There were 12 of them in the game, and then we're going to intersperse a certain number of them into each of these 3 decks. Now, in a true solo game, the number of cards we're going to disperse is going to be 3, 4, 3 respectively across the 3 eras. So we have 3, 4, 3. We're going to shuffle these 3 into the final era deck. Let me take a look at the chat. Jester error. Oh my, that is some accent. Yeah, dude. It's funny. I lost most of my childhood accent. I was a theater major, so it kind of got beaten out of me. But there are some words that still woof. I have a hard time, man. Jester, now I cannot unhear it every time. It sounds so vile and dirty. Out of time period. How about I'll go with time period? Oh, it's so bad. It was funny, man. There was a time I used to, like, whenever I got around my mom, like I would totally flip back into like New Jersey, New Staten Island accent, and it would be pretty, like, people who did not know that did not move at the time, like, wait, what are you doing? Why do you sound like that? But yeah, that time is long gone. Just certain words that still really trip me up. But linguist. 2 days in a row we're talking about linguistics. What about that? It's amazing. All right, this is going to go here, and then we're going to shuffle in. I guess it's not. Is that linguistics? Probably. I don't know. That's accents. That's part of linguistics, right? Somebody smarter than me needs to tell me how all these things come together. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take 5 of these cards from the first time period, and we're going to put them on the abolitionist queue. And only one opposition event can come out every time you add new cards. Only one can be added. So we're going to put this one here. This is Theodore Weld. Theodore Weld will give us the ability to move 1 slave from any plantation to a southern space with no effect. And that could be any southern space on the board, so any of the green spaces. An architect of the abolitionist movement, Weld also co-authored American Slavery as It Is, Testimonial of 1,000 Witnesses. We're going to get the next card. Now, this is our first opposition card, so if another opposition card comes out, we're going to have to put it back, and it's going to get shuffled back into the deck. New Jersey abolishes slavery. Slaves may not be moved into or out of northern blue cities using conductor tokens in effect until removed from the game. So this will stay there until the lantern phase, which is the next one of the it is the last phase of every round. We'll get to that. New Jersey was the last of the northern states to abolish slavery, though some remained apprentices until the 13th Amendment. Again, the 13th Amendment was specifically the amendment that tried to get rid of all vestiges of slavery in the United States. We're going to get the next card. It is the Liberator. Place one card in the Abolitionist queue back on top of the current Ages of Abolitionist deck. The Liberator, an abolitionist newspaper published by William Lloyd Garrison, ran continuously for 35 years. So what this lets us do is say, hey, I don't like that effect. That could be really bad for me. So I could buy this card, this abolitionist card, and I could basically put that back there. Probably won't do that. So realistically, what all that's saying is that we can't move tokens into the blue cities. I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon anyway. And at the end of this round, both of those cards go away. So this is actually a fairly decent opposition card to get early. We have this one, Liberty Hill. We can move 2 slaves, 1 space. And we can buy a token from here at full price. Now, we only have access to these tokens in the first time period. As we move on, so once we buy the support token there, we immediately get access to the tokens in the next time period. If there are multiple support tokens, because you're playing more than a true solo game, you would have to buy all those tokens, then you immediately have access to these next tokens. Now, we'll still be able to buy the conductor tokens and the fundraising tokens from the earlier level if there are any left. And again, this one will always be left. But again, we don't have access to anything here until we buy all the support tokens. But once we're here, that every time the abolitionist cube is refilled, we always refill from the most current era. So again, once you buy the support token, what we actually if there are any cards remaining here, which there probably will be, we just have to take the rest of that deck out of the game to remind us that we're only using the deck in the new time period. All right. So move 2 slaves 1 space each and purchase a token at full cost. John Rendon's Wolf. John Rankin's house atop a 540-foot hill stood as a beacon for slaves crossing the river, letting them know when it was safe. And then we have this last card coming out. It is an opposition card, so we're not going to put that one in. We're going to do this card. It is St. Catharines, Ontario. Move 1 slave from a large northern city direct to Canada. St. Catharines is a final stop on the Underground Railroad for hundreds of slaves in the 1820s. So we're going to take this, since again we had 1 opposition card came out, we shuffle this one back in. There were 2 opposition cards left in the deck for the first time period. All right, we're going to shuffle these up and go from there. Now, there are 3 ways to increase difficulty in this game. The first way is to take the card. Actually, let me back up from there. Depending on the number of players that you're playing with, so it is, again, it's like the number of spirits, how many boards you use, the number of players you're playing with, you would take one of these cards and you're going to put it up in the top corner of the board up there. There are 3 ways to increase difficulty. We can play on this side, or we can play on the harder side, which is this side, which is what I'm going to play on. On the regular side, I just find this a little bit easy, especially with the conductor, so we're going to try a harder challenge. Again, haven't pulled this off. I haven't done it. I have not successfully done it off camera yet, but hopefully today is the day. But ultimately, it tells you how many slaves need to be in Canada before you can trigger the endgame winning condition. That is the second half of your winning conditions. Remember, the first half of your winning condition is you have to get all the conductor tokens that are on the board over here. If you do that, in addition, you also need to have this many slaves freed into Canada. So if you've done that, and that you play until the end of the round, and if you haven't triggered a loss condition, then you win. And we'll talk about loss conditions in a minute. So this says that I need to have 5 slaves freed and only 12 slaves lost. Again, this game's pretty heavy because, again, lost isn't great. So it is what it is. On the backside, we need to have 7 slaves freed, and we can only have 8 slaves lost. The second thing we can do to increase our difficulty here, which I've done, is these plantation spots. There are 5 spots that are kind of browned out. So those spots, that means that if you're playing on normal mode, you just wouldn't fill those at the beginning of the game, and it would give you a place to put slaves that come from the slave market. Or to make it harder, we can start with those filled. I will start with those filled. That again is going to greatly increase the difficulty. And the third thing we can do to increase the difficulty is we can add an additional support token into the second time period. I will not be doing that. I don't think that's totally viable in a true solo game, but again, I would need to check out some threads and stuff. But I think this, and this, that's very much increasing the difficulty. I think in a multiplayer game where there's more money kind of flowing and there's more things happening, I think doing that will make some sense. I just don't think that's a really viable. I think trying to increase the difficulty across all three of those things. If someone's managed to pull off a victory doing that, please let me know in the comments. Because this might be something I'm still missing from a strategy perspective. All right, so I don't need these 3 tiles because we're not playing with a 2, 3, or 4 player game. So I'm just going to take those out of the game over there. We have these cards here. Now, these are our slave market cards. So I'm blocking kind of the bottom one on the board. So I'm just going to kind of shift everything up, which is fine. But these cards will tell you how many new slaves you're basically entering into the slave economy every round. It also serves as kind of your timer for the game. You only have 8 rounds to successfully complete both parts of the win condition. So if you don't do both of those and the 8th round ends, well, you've also lost the game that way. 3 of these cards have spots for 4 slaves, 2 of them have spots for 5 slaves, and 3 of these cards have spots for 6 slaves. These cards will change depending on the number of players. So all of these have the number 1 explicitly written on the bottom right corner. If you're playing with 2 players, you have 8 different cards. You're playing with 3 players, you have 8 different cards. Again, the balancing is actually very, very nice and very, very simple and straightforward. All right, Snotty says yes. Since he said it, I keep hearing error. I do the same whenever I tap my grandparents. I speak a totally different way. In my native, I mean, just notices there is some art on the card back. Yeah, it's cool. This is definitely not a game I would use opaque sleeves on. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Wow, some of these actually sound familiar. Also, this is not fun. I cannot in good conscience root against Greg here. That's why I bought it, Saget, just to mess with you. Mess with your allegiances. There are no manticores, so at least you're not betraying any manticore oath that you've taken in your your dark secret life, or not so secret life. So I'm gonna put 3 of these cards out, and again, I'm gonna have to shift these all up one, and we'll put this up here. So we're covering up a little bit of I'll just put this off center a little bit to not cover up the art of the different tracks. So we're going to have a 5er down here, a 4 here, and a 6 over here. I'm not going to try to line up the art exactly right. That's fine. Basically, every round, we know that we're going to have to make room for that many slaves. If for every slave we can't fit, it goes up into the slaves lost column. If we ever have to place a 9th, there's room for 8. If we have to replace a 9th slave in the slaves lost area, then that's one way we lose the game, and that's the primary way I've been losing these games off camera. All right, let's talk about the conductor. So I'm about to sneeze really bad. Maybe, I think. Maybe. I'm trying to time the mute button here. Yeah. This is like not the game for me to be having a sneeze moment, but that's fine. We're good. I think it passed, kids. So there are 5 rounds in every game. The first round, we're going to roll these dice and we're going to start activating the slave catchers. What are the slave catchers? All right. Great question. Glad you asked it. We have 5 tracks on the board. We have an orange track, a blue track, a yellow track, a purple track, and a brown track. I think the color is coming through pretty clear on the cameras, so hopefully that's going to be pretty easy to see as we go. There are also these gray paths. Those are not linked to any track. These represent slave catchers. So in the back, again, you have this jerky jerk of a dude on a horse who's trying to catch the slaves. If he ever catches a slave, does not go to the lost column, but it is added to the bottommost market. If a slave catcher ever catches slaves in a city and there are multiple of them, you just have to refill these markets. Say there are 3 slaves in Boston, and the slave catcher gets to Boston, then we just add one to each of the next three cards. If there are four slaves in Boston, you add one to each card, and then another one to the bottom card. So it can be pretty brutal. You don't want your slaves to get caught because you don't want to be adding that much more of an influx of slaves into the market. All right. So they kind of patrol these different tracks. We're going to roll dice in the slave catcher phase to determine where they move. Movement's super easy. You have black arrows and you have white arrows, and then each of these tracks has like white arrows go one direction, black arrows go another. They also will move whenever we start actually moving slaves with conductor tokens. We will first take any money that's indicated, because again, where people are getting excited, we're freeing a slave, there's more fundraising that happens, and then we will activate the slave catcher on that path one close. So this space links to the yellow path. So if we move the slave there, there's no money we would collect, but then that slave catcher would move one closer to them. If you ever get to a space that is connected to more than one track, so say we get there, we'll get the 2 money listed there, and then we have to activate both of those tracks. So we can activate the yellow, but we have to activate the orange. He catches a slave, and then the slave goes there. So we wouldn't want to move there unless the orange guy was somewhere else. So there's a lot of like spatial relationship puzzles that come into this game, in the sense that spatial relationship, but you have to see the path, see where there's an avenue to kind of get by the slave catchers. In the end, like, and I read this on like one like quick review, like, you can't worry about the slave catchers too much. The reality is they're rolling the dice. Only one of them is going to move to catch slaves. So if you lose one slave around, that's probably about right. You kind of just have to get the slaves everywhere as quickly as you can to try to get opportunities to get them into Canada, and then hopefully the abolitionist cards will really help you along with that. Now, if a slave is there and a slave catcher, say I rolled yellow 3, the slave catcher will go 1, 2, 3. He will only catch slaves in the spot that he ends on. So at that point, he would actually have skipped over me. However, when you're moving slaves, sometimes you can move slaves too. You cannot move through a place where there's a slave catcher. Now, a slave can move through a place where there's another slave. That's fine as long as it doesn't end where there's another slave, unless you're in a city where you can have multiple slaves. You can have up to 4 slaves in one city. All right, question. Did you try this multiplayer? Thoughts on solo? Plus, they did chase, which is the correct call here. Yeah, colors and chase, which is super nice for sure. It's very friendly. I played this multiplayer with a friend once. It was a good experience. I do think the game comes to life a bit more multiplayer, in that there's more support tokens, there's more room for like some strategy and interplay. So I like it solo too. I think they did a good job with balancing it for solo. I think it's really hard solo if you're jacking up the difficulty, like I am here. And again, I don't think all these characters come to life solo. Like the station master, you can only do something during another person's turn. There's a lot of these things that aren't great. That aren't really strong powers unless you're playing in a multiplayer game. I think this is a game that, as the rules really become like second nature, I will probably be veering more into two-handed play. I think whether or not you're going to want to sit down and play this with friends, it just depends on your friend group. I mean, it's a little heavy, right? And I think, I'm fortunate to have a somewhat diverse like gaming group, and I could see this game. I could see this game getting to the table more because of that, but I could see it also getting to the table less because of that, right? So this is not, I've talked to my friends about it, but whether or not you talking about it and finding it interesting that it exists and actually sitting down and wanting to play it is going to be really group to group specific, for sure. So for me, the fact that you can multi-hand solo is great. The true solo, again, the fact that they literally designed 8 cards that make it a balanced game for true solo play, I think is really good. And I think the mechanics, are really suited for a true solo game. Whether or not that's the best way to play it, again, I think the best way to play it is probably, for me, ultimately going to be 2 or 3 handed solo, with the occasional getting into a table with a group with one or two friends, right? Um, but we'll see. I mean, I still have a fair amount more to explore with this game, which is something I'm pretty excited about. Hold on one sec. All right. So I think that's it. What's the conductor? Other than talking about what the conductor does, so the conductor has a couple of abilities. Well, first off, everybody starts with eight, exactly eight money, and during the action phase, when I'll talk about the phases. So there's slave catcher phase where all we do is roll the dice. There's a planning phase where we can buy up to 2 tokens. There's the action phase where we can play up to 2 tokens. We can get exactly one abolitionist card. We can and then we can yeah, we can just making sure I'm reading this right. We can do our conductor action thing, or we can do our one time a game special action ability. So let me talk about what those are for the conductor. So every action phase with the conductor, I gain $1 and I can move 2 slaves 1 space each. Right now, once a game during the action phase, I can use 5 movements for one or more slaves, and I can move 1 slave 5 spaces or split it up amongst as many slaves as I wish. That's very strong for true solo. But then once I do that, we flip this over, and now I still get one money per action phase, but I only get to move 1 slave 1 space each during the action phase. So I'm losing 1 space per round. So if I do this in round 2, I've effectively lost the opportunity to move 6 more times, right? So you want to be careful not to use that ability too early for the conductor. Some of the other, especially like the preacher, has a special ability where he could just ignore one of these cards and just take it out without triggering its effects, and you'll see why that could be very strong. But then he actually goes from $1 per action phase up to 2 while retaining all of his other special abilities, right? So there are sometimes some characters that, hey, use that special ability earlier than you might otherwise. And with the conductor, though, we want to hold off to use that ability until we're getting a little bit desperate to do it. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to go into the slave catcher phase. Again, slave catcher phase, planning phase, action phase, slave market phase. That's when those slaves come out. And then there's a lantern phase where we kind of replenish the abolitionist queue and then rinse and repeat. And again, there are only 8 rounds. So time is a ticking. Let's go. Slave catcher phase. I rolled an orange and then 3 black triangles. So 1, 2, and 3. That's a little bit of a rough roll, but it does open up some opportunities to get into Canada on the western coast over here. So let's see if we can take advantage of that. We're going to go to the planning phase. I'm going to spend exactly $4. So I have $8 left, and I'm going to buy 2 of these conductor tokens, and we'll put them right here. We are going to now go into the action phase. Again, everything's super quick, right? I'm going to do my special ability before I forget, which is let me get $1, and I can move 2 slaves 1 space each. So I'm going to go 1 and 2. Now I got here, I didn't get any money, didn't trigger any slave catchers. I get here, didn't trigger any money, but I trigger the yellow slave catcher, so he's going to come down there. Remember, I have 5, I want to make 5 openings in the plantations, so I have room for all 5 of those slaves to go from the market cards to the plantations, so I do not have to worry about losing any slaves on turn 1. I'm pretty set up decently with the next couple of rounds because we have a 5 slaver and a 4 slaver, and then we have 6 slaves coming in round 3. Getting 6 slaves from a card into open spots and plantations is going to prove very difficult in round 3, as I'm assuming will play out as we see. Says, all right, cool. I won't be able to follow most of the stream, so good luck and hope the game opens up nice. Yep. Thank you, sir. Have an amazing day. I am going to. I'm going to use my once an action phase thing to pay for Theodore Ward. And Theodore Weld, I'm sorry, and Theodore Weld is going to say I can move 1 space from any plantation to a southern space with no effect. Again, I'll read the flavor text of these things as they come out, and then we'll just kind of do the effect. This is not a white background, so it's not a reserve card. I have to do it immediately. So I'm going to take 1 slave from here, and I can put it in any slave with no effect. So I put it there. with no effect means it does not trigger the slave catcher. So I'm gambling that I'm not going to roll an orange black arrow at any time soon, but I really want to make sure I'm trying to making use of as many spaces in the south as possible. One, for fundraising efforts in the future, but two, just to make sure I'm opening up more ability to get slaves out of these plantations. So this is going to go out of the game, and that is carried out. We now have 2 conductor tokens. Let's see if I can't open up 2 more spaces in these plantations. So I'm going to use this token so I can move 3 slaves, 1 space each. I'm going to move this slave there. That's no money, but it triggers the purple slave catcher. So he's going to try to be like, what's going on over there? Oh, nothing, jerk. Just mind your own business. So that's 1. This is 2. And then I'm going to start filling in these like low hanging fruit spots down here to kind of get as many slaves out of the plantations as possible. That's 3. I'm going to use another conductor token that I can move 3 spaces, 3 slaves, 1 space each. We're going to go 1. Again, no money, but we trigger this slave catcher. 2. We're going to have this come over here. And I should still have 4 money. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, why do I have so much money? And 1 more. I'm going to move this guy. Again, let's just keep making room to get more slaves out. Because you see, it's like to get a slave out of here. First, it was easy, it's 1 movement. Then it's like 1 movement, 1 movement. Now to get the next guy, it's 1 movement, 1 movement, 1 movement, right? You can see why the movement really gets harder and harder and harder, and why you kind of get jammed up down here in a way that's not great. When you just look at the slave market cards that are going to continue to come. So 3, let's go. Again, we're going to try to take advantage of the fact that the orange goes all the way down there. So I go 3. I trigger $1, but we also have to activate the purple slave catcher, so he comes here, and we're activating the blue slave catcher because both the blue and the purple track link to that 1 space. So at some point, we're going to try to distract the purple to make him come back this way, but we also have the brown slave catcher who's kind of messing things up over there. So those are all of my actions. I did 1 abolitionist card, I used 2 conductor tokens, and I did my special ability. I have nothing else I want to do. I'm definitely not using my character's special ability, the 1 time a game special ability. I used the 1 time around special ability, but I did not use the 1 time a game special ability. I wish there was like a different word there to try to make that a little bit easier to explain. All right, let's go to the next phase. So we're going to add 5 slaves from this marker card into the various plantations. So we're going to put 1 there, we'll put 2 here, and we'll put 2 here. This marker card is now empty. These shift down, and we're going to add a new one. It's good. There's 1 5 left, 2 3s left, and 2 6s left. I'm sorry, 2 4s left and 2 6s left. We have a 4. I'll just kind of fill that card up that way. We're now going to go to the lantern phase. We're going to remove this from the game. So the effect that it had that was ongoing is now no longer in place. So I can move slaves into blue cities, which will be great. And then we're going to move these cards over. In a 1 or 2 player game, you remove both cards from the rightmost hash, the rightmost spots. I don't know why I said hash. And note, something I should have pointed out is that the cost of cards go from most expensive to least expensive. So as they move down, they get less expensive. So you want to like take a look like, hey, what card am I going to want to probably play the next turn when it's cheaper, right? So this costs 3, 2, 2, 1, and 1. We're refilling this with 2 cards. Ooh, we do get an opposition card, which is not great. Fundraising tokens only draw funds from large cities. Woof. That's not great. So that's Elijah P. Lovejoy. In effect, to remove the game, Lovejoy, editor of the anti-slavery paper, the Alton Observer, was shot by a pro-slavery mob as they attempted to burn down his warehouse. That's super sad. And then we have Southern Church correspondence. Each player receives 2 money from the bank. Churches were often one of the few places slaves were allowed to congregate, allowing mail to be passed along. So I do want to check out, there is a nice little appendix. I'm a little confused about Elijah P. Lovejoy here. It's a really rough card. I'm not really sure if I've seen that one yet. When farmers are only slaves in large cities can count drawing funds. This effect lasts until the card is removed. It can be purchased or removed. All right, so basically I can spend 2 to get this out of the game, so it no longer applies. I may choose to do that, or I can just basically try to just do a non-fundraising route for a little bit. We'll see. That's not ideal. Now, one of the things I do find easy to do in this game is because you're kind of refilling this thing. It's, oh, go to the next phase, and it's like, nope. And now we have to go back to the slave catcher phase. So I'm going to roll these dice, and we'll see what happens. I rolled a brown black triangle, so he actually moves up into New York. These northern cities are where you can fundraise the most money for the most part, well, at least the easiest. There are some two spots in the middle of the country here, but there's so many slave catcher routes that those can be really tricky to get to. These northern cities are a little bit easier, but now that got a little harder because we have the slave catcher pretty far up there, but it does open up a potential opportunity in Washington, D.C. I can buy 2 tokens, and again, I'm still only have access to the first time period. I'm going to spend the 2 money to get this token. Now, this token, again, will go back there after I use it because it's gray, and then I will get the fundraising token, although Elijah P. Lovejoy is going to make that a little bit annoying. Not sure if it makes sense to buy that out of there or just kind of deal with it for a little bit. Not great. It might just prolong how much I'm in the first time period, but if I can keep getting slaves out of the plantations, I'm not that worried about it. But you only have 4 slaves coming in, so that's nice. And I think I have other opportunities to get some funds here. So I'm going to do my once a round thing where I'm going to get $1 during the action phase. I can move 2 slaves, 1 space each. We're going to move this slave here, which gives me $1. Did I take the dollar? Did I took the dollar, right? I can't remember if I took the dollar now. Wait, I had 4. I don't know. Someone has to tell me if I took the dollar from here. I think I did. The special action. I had 4 after I bought things. I got $1. I spent the dollar. I got $1 for going there. So that should have been 5. I just spent 2. I got 1 and I got 1. Yeah, I had to have taken it. All right. So that was my first of 2 actions. I have one more action. Again, from my special ability, 1 more movement point. So I'm going to put this dude here. He's in DC. That gives me 2 money. So I'm going to put in a 3. Let me kind of lay this out. Take a 1. And then it triggers movement of both the purple slave catcher and the brown one. 1, 2. Fundraising. Let me move this guy back and put that dollar back. And I actually moved this guy here, which the purple slave catcher could have gone there now. That's fine. That's going to let me actually make space for everything on that card. I had this 1 conductor token. So that's going to let me move 3 slaves, 1 space each. This goes back here, as I said. I can move this guy here. I can spend $1 to move this guy over here. And I can move this guy here. Did I forget to move him? I think I forgot to move him. When I moved him here up there, he should have moved 1 there. And then, yeah. So when I moved him here, the heck I should have moved there. And then I undid that. And then I just didn't, I put the dollar back. But since I never moved him, that's fine. So remember to take the dollar and then just do, oh man, my voice is killing me right now. Sorry for that. And then do the slave catcher movement. It's going to be pretty methodical. So to be clear, so I did 2 movement points. I moved 1 guy there, which moved the purple. I moved the second guy out, or then I moved this guy there, moved the purple back, and got 2 money. And then I did 3 movement points. I moved 1 guy out, this guy over, and then 1 guy out. This is basically I spent $1 to board a ship. This is not a space you have to stop at, but you have to spend the dollar to get to that ship, and that ship's connected to both Philadelphia, well, not only Boston and New York, which are the big cities, but also Philadelphia, and you get 2 money there. Again, this slave catcher though is going to be a problem. So maybe we can keep like jockeying him back and forth between New York and Philadelphia. Boston's a good spot, but Boston does take 3 more spots to get to Canada, whereas New York is only 2 away from Canada, just the way the routes work out. So the last thing I can do is I can buy one of these cards. Uh, Interesting. Oh, this could be really well. This could work out really well. So I'm gonna do Liberty Hill. So I'm gonna spend 1 money. So I'm gonna put in a 5 and get back 4. Now remember, I only used 1 token so far this round. So this is actually a really nice token. And remember, when you use these tokens, they immediately go back on the board. So I spent 2 money. No, 1 money. So I have 4 money left, which makes sense. I'm moving 2 slaves, 1 spot each. Now I'm going to move this guy there, get a dollar, and remember to move the slave catcher. That's 1 spot. And then my second spot, I'll move this guy. Here, we'll move the slave catcher back. And then I can buy a token at full cost. I'm going to spend the 2 to get this. And I can now use it again, which is pretty cool. I'm going to spend this token. So I can move 3 slaves, 1 spot each. Goes back on the board because it's a gray token. So that's 1, 2. I get 2 money. We move the purple guy, and then 3, which is good. So we have opened up 6 spaces in the plantations. We're going to go to the slave market phase. We're going to add 4 slaves back to the plantations. This comes down. This comes down. This comes down. New card. It's going to be a 6 or a 5. Or there was actually 1 4 left too, but it is a 6. So we have 6, 4, 6 in the upcoming slave markets. Lantern phase. This comes out. These comes over. These come over. We're going to add 2 more cards. This and this. We managed to avoid an opposition card, which is super nice. All right, let's go to the slave catcher phase. We're going to roll these 2 dice. It's a brown, dark, the brown and 2 black arrows. So we're going to go 1 and 2. So this guy's now in Boston. That changed. I was really eyeing St. Catharines, Ontario for a second. The 2 cards that came out, let me talk about these, is I don't think I even read this before. So this was Southern Church Correspondence. Churches were often one of the few places slaves were allowed to congregate, allowing mail to be passed along. And then we have here Ripley, Ohio. Ripley's adjacency to the Ohio River and its proximity to slave state of Kentucky made it an important step on the railroad. This is going to allow us to move 2 slaves, one each, without triggering slave catcher movement, which could be really nice. But again, that's going to cost us 2. And then we have Levi Coffin. During any player's action phase, ignore the movement of 1 slave catcher if they would capture a slave, then discard this card, play it from your reserve. So I bought this. It would go on my reserve. So basically, again, you could have 1 card in reserve, and then I could use it as needed. At the end, one of the most powerful forces in the Underground Railroad, Levi Coffin, helped thousands of slaves prior to and after emancipation. That's going to go there. We can buy 2 tokens, but there's only 1 token there for me to buy because I'm kind of gotten stuck in that first time period a little bit too long. But I'm going to spend 2. I'm going to throw some money around, and I get this conductor token. I still cannot afford that because remember, my fundraising efforts have been really messed up by Elijah P. Lovejoy being in play, which I'm still not really sure. Oh, he wrote an anti-slavery paper. So basically, what happened during his murder, but since he was murdered, it made people were scared to support the fundraising efforts. Is basically what I'm guessing happened from an historical perspective. All right, let's go. Here, Tolas, hey, I'm a new subscriber. I found you through your Maze Life videos. Nice watching you. What's your favorite solo game? Jester says Greg's favorite solo game is Spirit Island, followed closely by Maze Knight. Yeah, they jockey back and forth with one. I mean, they're both like my ones. I have a hard time. I'm having a harder time than ever, like deciding which one I like more. But they're 1A and 1B for sure. Tolas, thanks. What do you guys think of Hop Victorum? I'm about 2 months away from playing that one for sure, but I have it. Looking forward to trying it. I'm kind of wishing I picked up remastered maybe instead, just from a time investment. Um, because just the campaign structure of Victorum is a little bit less friendly for my time constraints right now. Jester, I haven't gotten to that one yet, but it looks good. I will get it once it's available. Chad Fox says, shout out to Saint Kitts. I've not played this one, and it looks great. Yeah, it is. It's very, very interesting, for sure. And I don't mean interesting can be such an ambiguous word, um, but I don't mean it in a pejorative, like negative way. So, just want to clarify that. Ah, tempted to use my special ability, but yeesh. I have one slave in a northern city, but it is not a large northern city. These are the large northern cities, but this dude is really cramping my style. Yeah, this Lovejoy thing. I could buy it. I could get rid of it, which might be the smartest thing to do. They can definitely buy that fundraising token next turn. But then I get the support token next turn. If I do my special ability, could really open up the board and kind of give me a window. All right, I'm gonna do my regular once a round special ability. I'm gonna get $1 and move two slaves, one space each. We're gonna go one, which gives me 2 money, which triggers this guy, and then we're gonna go 2, which gives me 1 money, but triggers this guy. There's 6 slaves coming in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna put 5 singles in to get a fiver. I have this. Yeah, this guy's really jamming me up. I don't have a good path to a northern city because of where he ended up. Mm, spend 2, I get the 2 back. I'm gonna need to make sure I have 10 money. Excuse me, sorry about that. Yikes, I'm in a pickle. This is me in a pickle. This is me in a pickle, guys. And all 3 of the large cities just got shut down by him chilling there. I mean, I could actually move to sacrifice a dude, which is never a great feeling. This is not considered a large northern city, it's just a city. DC is neither north nor south. Alright, let me get rid of this token. That's going to give me 3 movement. It goes back there because it's gray. It's 1, I get $1. Triggers the blue slave catcher. DC is kind of closed off. I got totally stuck. I gotta trigger the blue safe catcher again. Two, no money. This triggers that. And then three, I can get this guy out of there. I have this fundraising thing, which is pretty useless with that. But that's going to fall off. I can't make use of that, which is a little bit annoying. I still have the potential to use Ripley's thing, which I think makes some sense. So let me spend $2 to use Ripley. I can move 2 slaves, 1 space each without triggering, that stays, without triggering slave catchers. I'm going to move this guy here. So it says I don't trigger slave catchers, but I still get paid as normal. If it said no effect, I wouldn't even get paid. So that's 1. And 2. Again, don't trigger slave catchers, don't get any money. And then finally, I am going to use her thing. During your action, use 5 movements for one of our slaves. You can split them up 5 spaces or split up as many slaves as you wish. So I still need space for 3 slaves down here. So I'm going to move 1. I have 4 movement points left. That does trigger the yellow. Two, we'll get our first slave in. 3, I get $1 and triggers the orange. I have 2 more left. If I don't stop there in the yellow, I don't get that money, to be clear. So where you end is the only thing that matters. I have 1 more left. I have opened up 4 spaces in the plantations. How much money do I have? I really need to get that support token. I'm in a bad spot. I'm in a bad spot, kids. Do need to get more money. So I don't know if there's a place where I can move to get $1. Which isn't great. I moved him here last turn. I can move him here, get $1. With not last turn, my last action, when I did the Ripley's thing. So 12 money should be enough. I'm about to lose some slaves, but hopefully I think I can withstand the onslaught a little bit. All right, so this is out. We're going to go to the slave market phase. I can only have room for 4 slaves in the plantations. So 2 slaves go into the lost column up here. This comes out, this comes down. Only 4 slaves next round, and then we have 2 Sixers in a row. That's gonna be rough. All right, we're gonna refill the market. So this finally comes off, so we don't have to worry about Lovejoy being in play anymore. St. Catherine's comes off. These move over, and 3 more cards come out. There should be guaranteed 1 more opposition card. And here it is. Boom. So the 3 cards that came out are Lane Theological Seminary. One of the first public dialogues in slavery was organized by Theodore Dwight Weld and held over 18 days at the seminary in 1839. You can move 2 slaves 1 space each, or buy a token for 2 less. John Greenleaf Whittier exchanged the position of 2 cards in the abolitionist queue, a founding member of the American Anti-Slavery Society. Whittier, or Whittier was probably how you pronounce it, was a strong political lobbyist and poet. You get to change again where 2 cards are. That's more like relevant in a cooperative game. And then gag rules: players may only purchase one token during the planning phase, in effect until removed from the game. Pro-slavery forces set up a series of procedural rules that prevented any petitions to abolish slavery from ever coming to light in Congress. That's not great. Oh. So this is in effect as long as that's there, which means I was going to buy 2 tokens, but now I can only buy 1. But I think I can make that work. So I'm going to spend the 2 and make sure I get I need that to fall off. It's really bad. The good thing is I can get a ton of money from that. But like, it doesn't matter if I only can buy 1 thing anyway. Wolf. Alright, I'm going to spend the 10 and get the support token, where now technically I have access to all tokens in that column and in that column. I can only buy 1, so I did not buy a movement token. But that should be good. So what I'm going to do is spend 2 to, I have to do the slave roll. I forgot it. That I told you go down here and you put that in, and it's like, oh, you get a nice space. So the slave roll is 3 black movement. So it's actually up to Boston, just shutting down the large cities, but it does open up a bit of a path for this line of slaves to kind of continue to get through. Although Philly, he might have to come here and then go around the long way, which could work. So sorry about that. Just again, someone can alert me if I forget to roll that next turn, which I'm sure I will. Now that this Elijah Lovejoy card is gone, I can actually use this token. This will count as one of the 2 tokens I can use this phase. I'm going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 money. So that's a pretty good use of that. And this says I can only buy 1 token during the planning phase, but I can definitely buy multiple tokens outside of the planning phase. I will. Oh, that's another thing. I have to add 4 slaves in there. I still have my conductor action. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still something. I only have to. I don't think this is going to end well. I do have access to these tokens now, which is good. Look up something about gag rules. I'm pretty sure that covers fundraising tokens too. It does not. Alright, I'm going to spend 2 money to use the Lane Theological Seminary, which is going to allow me to buy a token at a $2 discount. I'm going to spend 1 more money to get this, which allows me to move 2 slaves 2 spaces each. I'm going to use that token to move this guy out of Philadelphia up to there. I get $1. And then I'm going to move. I think I'm losing 3 more, which isn't great. I'll move this guy 2 spaces there. I get $2. He comes down, and the purple's also connected to that, so they come over. And then I'm going to get $1 for my special action. And I can move 1 token, 1 space. I will get another slave out of this most eastern plantation. Checking the chat. Jester, Greg, if you don't make Spirit Island your number one game of all time, you're listening to the Little Devil on your shoulder. I know you love them both, but you need to commit. Yeah. I made the commitment. Number one game of all time is Dominion. Number two is Arkham Horror Second Edition. It's close, but I've resigned myself to this. Yeah, I keep going back and forth, man. And like one of the things I love about Mage Knight is that it's just a set universe and it's so deep. The fact that Spirit Island keeps adding more content isn't I'm weird like that. I'm just like, all right, now I gotta evaluate all this other crap. Like Mage Knight, it is what it is. It's awesome, and like Spirit Island just like stresses me out. In some ways, I still obviously love them both, but you will see. I my next top solo game video coming out in April, so you all can wait on with bated breath. All right, so this is gonna get added here. We have 3 more lost slaves, so that's not great, and then we have back-to-back Sixers, which is making me a little worried. We have a 5er here, so we didn't get our third 4. It's the last card on the deck, and that's just unfortunate. Lantern Phase, these 2 cards go away. These 2 cards move over. The gag rules is gross. We had 3 cards. We're using a new deck now. So John Brown, purchase a token at a $5 discount, and then draw and resolve the next abolitionist card. That could be helpful. And we have vigilance committees, and we have Anthony Burns. So John Brown saw armed insurrection as a means to an end slavery in the U.S. We have vigilance committees. Each player receives 3 from the bank. Vigilance committees were formed in response to the Fugitive Slave Act, advocating and supporting resistance. And then finally, we have move 1 slave from a northern city directly to Canada. Burns' arrest and trial under the Fugitive Slave Act brought protests and riots. Burns eventually settled in Canada. You just can't get people into large northern cities. That doesn't count as a northern city again because it's not blue and it's obviously in the green part of the map. I can only buy 1 token because gag rules is still in effect. I will spend the 3. I could get the fundraising token again. I'll spend nothing. I spend nothing. Or do I want to just buy the support token? There's a card in the middle deck that takes 2 slaves like out of the bottom. I think I need to move. I need to move as much as possible. Yeah, I'll spend the 3. 1, 2, 3. We're going to get this. I'm going to spend the 2 to get John Brown. I can buy a token for a $5 discount. I'm just going to get this one for free. It only costs 3, so I just wasted $2. But now I immediately draw the next abolitionist card and resolve it. Oh, it's an opposition card. That's bad. Move 3 non-plantation slaves back to plantations. Resolve when removed. The Supreme Court ruled in 1837 that slaves and their descendants were not protected by the Constitution and could not be citizens. That was super unlucky. So you're hoping for a card that gives you a positive effect when you play John Brown. The fact that they got an opposition card that just takes over that spot is that's how there's an FAQ, like there's an appendix which explains that's how that's supposed to operate. That's not gonna go well for us, for sure. I could try to get 7 in. The problem is I'm adding 6 here, and I just don't have the space. This route kind of got jacked up because that slave catcher just didn't really move further into the southern states. So that's creating a whole host of problems for me. I still have access to her special ability. Ah. One of the things I could have done is bought the support token up there and just gone into the next round, but there's a couple of cards I was really hoping to see in this round. That's a bad card. There's only 3 opposition cards in this deck, and of course I binked from right off the top. Right off the top. Yeah, there's 17 cards in this deck total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, I pulled off 3 when I refilled. So there were 14 cards left. 3 were opposition cards, and that's an especially bad one. Red Scout, there's no space. I wonder if they have to go to, do they go to Lost or not? It's really bad. That's not good. All right, we're gonna go. Moves force. No, I'll get it. The conductor action. I'll get $1 and move this slave into freedom. We're gonna move 2 slaves, 2 spaces each. This is gonna go back there. This guy's gonna move here. I get $1. He jumps there, and then I'll move this guy here. I get $2. I already moved the slave catcher down. I can move 4 slaves, 1 space each. It's not gonna work. Not gonna work. We're gonna do this. This goes here. This goes over. That's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'm not gonna have the room. That's gonna be the end of the rope. That was bad. I wonder if I bought this. There you go. That would have been the card. Yeah. If I bought the support token, I could Harriet Tubman, move 2 slaves from any plantations in the south directly to Canada. Yeah, that would have been a much more effective card with John Brown. Because, again, if I bought the support token, we immediately enter this era because these go away. And that is an immediate effect from what I could tell. I haven't seen anything clarifying that it's not. So, support tokens. The players are clearly pushed also they met one of the game's victory conditions. Yeah, the game is immediately paused and 2 changes take effect. Cool. What time is it? All right. Yes, but I remember that Maze Knight had the base game come out and then had 2 different expansions come out after that. Spirit Island had only 3 expansions, I think, so they are still close. Yeah, no. Spirit Island had the base game, Branch and Claw, Feather and Flame, which is effectively 2 different promo spirits, Jagged Earth, Nature Incarnate, Horizons of Spirit Island. there's a lot, dude. Maze Knight had 3 different expansions come out if you include the Crane character. But I know what you're saying about adding stuff to the core game and expanding with more stuff. It can take away from what you know, what you care about in the core game. Sometimes expansions can take away more than it adds, but I am an expansion guy and love them. I have all this. Wow! I have all 15 Dominion expansions? That's bananas, Chester. Both times I watched the game being played, it was a loss, so I think it's a hard game. Yeah, it's hard. I think it's probably. I mean, I'm playing at a harder difficulty. I've never actually pulled this off. I think that you have to get a little lucky with how these gag rules, how these opposition cards come out. I'm thinking about running it back. See if I heard from a friend I know is coming over today. Yeah, let me run it back real quick because why not? What else am I doing? Because I'm gonna either I do it on camera or I do it off camera, and I don't know. Hopefully we can. I'm feeling like we can pull off a win. Maybe sort of. Don't hold your breath. So these are gonna go there. It's really easy to reset, which is nice. It's definitely one of the things I dig about this game. I think if you were, going through like if this was like a slog to like set up and take down, on top of like the emotional heaviness of the subject matter, I think that could be tough. It is something that did kind of come into play with a Twam for sure for me. So this will go here. This goes here. Again, you just take the tokens you set aside. We have 2 for each of those. in the second time period. Fundraising tokens are all there. Support token, support token. Yeah, if I bought the support token, I got that Tubman card. The Tubman card's used. There is a card in the middle deck, which I really like. The Armorstad Rebellion. Move 2 slaves from the bottom of the slave market card directly to Canada. It's a great freaking card when you can come out. And when you're playing at the higher difficulties, you are going to need to get a little bit luckier for sure. Alright, so 3, 4, 3. 2 cards come out. So there's 2 opposite cards not in every game. I'm going to shuffle this real quick. And I'll probably speed this. I'll probably speed play this a little bit. This game is really hard to find if someone like really wants it. I picked this up at the PAX Unplugged marketplace for a price I was happy to pay. A lot of the secondhand prices for this game are rather inflated. It is out of print. I don't see it coming back into print. It was made by a pretty small indie publisher. What does I find interesting is that the design team seems to have been all white, which is fine. I mean, there's a lot of, I haven't, in 2022, 2023, whatever friggin' year we're in, like, it seems like if someone does something in a culturally insensitive way, like, you'll hear about it. I've never heard a bad word said about this game, which, considering the subject matter, is pretty impressive. So, it does seem like they did a good job. The history is presented well. But anyone who knows, if there's something inaccurate on any level, like, please, I mean, that's what these comment sections are for sure. So, you definitely would not mind some of that discussion here. We're going to put these slaves back here. We're going to have I'll put everything back in the increments that we're going to need during the game. So 3 6s, 2 5s, another 5, 4, 4, and 4. There's definitely something where you can't like blitz Canada. Like, you're not going to have if you're just trying to blitz everyone to get 7 into Canada as soon as possible, you're not going to have the funds you need for the support tokens to be able to end the game. And then you're not going to have the spaces to put the new tokens that come in from the slave market. So you really need to get them out from here. There is, it's just actually, in contrast, which totally different game, but Lost Expedition, like, I was trying to be like more slow and like methodical in that game, and then I realized, like, in games off camera, that the best way to play that game is just absolutely blitz. Just like every time you could explore, just explore, and just take the wounds, kill off your explorers, hope you have one that survives to the end. This game, I don't see a viable strategy to blitz in Canada. You really need to have everything carefully laid out. When this slave catcher somehow gets down here, it opens up those northern cities, which is not only a really great source of income, but it gives you places to move. But that also is a pretty expensive route as you're taking, that ship up into the northern cities. But that dollar you spend there, it's nothing compared to the $3 and $2 you keep getting back, right? So it's totally worth it from a resource management standpoint with this game. I have to run to pick up my lunch. Back in a bit. Hope you're eating something delicious, sir. For sure. So we're going to take these 8 cards, putting 3 more out. We have a 4, a 6er, and a 5er. So one of everything. A little bit of a combo platter here. 4, 5, and 6. Gonna put out the abolitionist queue. We have Theodore Ward. Hello, we saw you last time. Woof. Fugitive Slave Act. Good to get this out early. Up to 3 slaves. Up to 3 slaves in spaces next to slave catchers are captured after the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. Former owners had more tools to help recapture former slaves, including posses, I guess, federal marshals, and bounty hunters. Another opposite card, so we know that, wow, domestic slave trade is in play. That's not great, but it doesn't, again, only one opposite card will start to begin the game. So it does mean that maybe we should try to get into the second act a little bit sooner so we don't see this again, because it will add another market another slave to the market every time there's a delivery. So we have St. Catherine's and then Lane Theological Seminary. We've already seen both of those. Yeah, so we'll see if we can't maybe advance this in the second turn and hopefully not get that one card back, because it's pretty gross. Put this here. We're going to go to the slave catcher phase. We already put the slave catchers back where they belong. I rolled orange 1. He's going to go down here. We're going to buy 2 tokens. I'm going to buy 2 of these conductor tokens, and then we're back to my starting side, which will be super helpful. Remember, when this comes off, you can resolve or remove. That can be removed when we buy it, or that's just going to be removed naturally. We just want to make sure we're not in any spaces adjacent to any of the slave catchers. The only ones that's a real big risk are going to be these 2 right here. Also, we don't want to take up that ship space. We only have 4 slaves coming in, so that's not terrible. So I'm going to use this token to get 3 movement points. 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to use this token to get 3 movement points. 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to use a special action. I get $1, and I can move 2 slaves 1 space each. I'm going to go 1 and 2, get 2 money. He moves here. And then I'm going to be able to put a dude in any plantation space without effect. I think that will work. I will do... Yes, I'll spend the... Not a large open city. I'll spend $1 for Thomas Weld. And I'm going to move this guy from here to here. Again, no effect, so no slave catchers move. And that's absolutely fine. Thank you, Thomas Weld. You have been a gentleman and a scholar both of the last 2 games. So that's the end of that. We're going to add 4 slaves to the plantation. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. This comes off. These move down. Hope for another 4, please. It is a 4, so that's fine. So it's 2 of our 3 4s. That will come on the board. We're going to remove this. There are no slaves and spaces adjacent to slave catchers, so that can go away. These come over. We reset the market. 1 and 2. Great. I'm going to definitely try to buy that during the action phase. This will come off. I'll reset my special ability. And we have 5 tokens there. I'm going to bump that up to a 5 before I buy things. Slave catcher phase. Purple moves 2, 1, 2, and blocks up DC. We are going to buy up to 2 tokens. I don't have... Well, great. I'm going to spend 2, so I put in a 5, took back 3, grab this, and I'm also going to grab the fundraising token. We're going to have to add 6 slaves at the end of this round, so we'll see how many I can get freed up here. So if I do the 3er, I'm going to go 1, 2, and I'll spend $1, 3. Do my special thing. I'm going to get $1 and move 2 more. Shoot. Uh, 1. And actually, let me move him here. Give me $1 back. He'll move down here. So 1 and can't go there because the yellow is going to come take me. This is fine. 1 and 2. I'll get $1. Move him here. And the reason why I wanted to hit back here is to maximize money I'm getting over here, because now I'm going to do the support token. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's only 2 open spots, just makes sense. So the support token goes out, the fundraising token, I'm sorry. So I'm going to put in 2 and get a tenner. And now I can still buy a card from here. I'm going to spend 2 money to get the Lane Theological Seminary. I can either move 2 slaves or buy a token for 2 less. I'm going to spend 8. So I get 2 money back. And I'm going to buy the support token there, which immediately means that we're going to head into the second time period, which means I don't have to worry about the 2 opposition cards that were left in here, which is great. Didn't really lose out on too much goodness. So these are out. We're going to go to the slave market phase. I have 5 open spots, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We lose 1. This leaves the game. These come down. The next card comes off. It's a 4, so 2 4s in a row is very, very nice. And now we're going to go to the lantern phase. These move over. 3 cards from the middle deck now. Not an opposition card, and a non-opposition card. So Bleeding Kansas, we have not seen these cards. Move 2 slaves from southern spaces to a large northern city with no effect, and discard any opposition to cards remaining in spots 2 or 3. The Kansas-Nebraska Act, like Kansas's entry as a free or slave state, be decided by its inhabitants, triggering mass immigration. We have the Farron riots. Remove from the game the top conductor and fundraising tokens from the current period column. And then we have the Oberlin, Ohio. Move 4 slaves, 1 space each, or repurchase a token at a 4 discount. Oberlin was a very active point along the Underground Railroad, with the majority of town helping to aid fugitive slaves. Remember, there are 4 opposition cards in here, so those are the orange, and they can be super nasty. I'm just going to have to trigger the Farron riots. It is what it is. I'm not sure. Farron riots. Right, it doesn't include the gray tokens, but I'm probably going to lose a fundraising opportunity out of that. We're going to roll the slave catcher dice. Orange goes back up here. It's not terrible, although I don't have anyone especially close to Canada. We're going to go to the planning phase. I can buy 2 tokens. I only have 4 money, so I'm going to buy. I have this access back. I'm going to spend 3 to buy this. And I'm going to get a fundraising token. And now we can go to the action phase. I'm going to get $1, move 2 slaves 1 space each. I'm going to move this guy here. I get $1. That triggers purple, or blue and purple. I'm going to move another one. I'll move him here. This triggers yellow. I'm going to spend 2 to get Bleeding Kansas. I can move 2 slaves from any of the green spaces to a southern state, to a northern city with no effect. I'm going to move this one and this one. No. I'll move this one and no. I'm going to move this one and this one. Put them up here. And then I remove this and this. Now, when this gets removed from the game, it gets resolved. So I have to remove the top conductor token, the gray one stays, and the top fundraising token. So I've lost 1 fundraising opportunity out of that. But that's resolved. So only 3 opposition cards left to deal with in the second time period. Bleeding Kansas goes away. So we're going to get 5 new cards out there next turn. So again, only 1 opposition card can be added any round, so that's not terrible. I have 4 more movement I can spend with that conductor token. So 1, 2. Yikes! I'm probably going to lose 2 here. This guy's kind of stuck. Can't move him twice. It's fine. 3, $1. He moves back, and then 4, $1. He moves back. And then I'm going to do this fundraising token. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 money coming my way. I still have my special ability, which is pretty huge. I'm going to change that up for a 5. Like so. It's somewhat tempting to buy that, but I think we're not in a huge rush. I'm not even close to 7, so that's it. We're going to add slaves to the markets. I can only add 3, so I lose 2. Up to 3 up there. I have room for 5 more. These come down. We flip this over. It's another 5er, so we're getting a little bit lucky there. The bottom of the deck is 2 6ers. Lantern phase, those get removed. We're adding 5 more cards. I can purchase a token at a $3 discount. The Lincoln Douglas debates, the Kansas-Nebraska Act. At the beginning of the action phase, discard to switch the position of 2 abolitionist cards in the queue. Uncle Tom's Cabin, I can buy a token for 3 less, and swap place the 2 cards in the abolitionist queue. Northern Blue Cities bring in 1 less than normal when we get there. In effect until removed from the game, cannot be purchased. That's John C. Calhoun. And then the North Star, place 1 card in the abolitionist queue back on top of the current Aegis abolitionist deck. It can be especially effective if you're then planning to advance, but that's the kind of play that you can only do multi-handed, which is why I do think this game will shine more multi-handed solo than true solo. One of the reasons. Lincoln's stance on slavery took shape over the course of the 1850s, gaining some of the strangest attention during his debates with Stephen Douglas in 1838. We have the Kansas-Nebraska Act. By including that voters would determine the status of slavery, politicians turned territorial expansions into a collision point of the abolitionist movement. We have Uncle Tom's Cabin. Uncle Tom's Cabin began its life as a serial in the abolitionist periodical National Era. When published, it sold 300,000 copies the first year. It's kind of bananas considering the time period. In addition to being the 7th president of the United States, Calhoun was also a vocal supporter of slavery as a positive good and not a necessary evil. He's special. And then we have the North Star. Frederick Douglass used the North Star as a vehicle for exploring the Constitution, emancipation, and women's rights. All right, and obviously the North Star up here being a little homage to Frederick Douglass, and that's, I feel like my frame rate might be a little off. Jester is back. Hope lunch was delicious, sir. All right, I'm going to spend, we're in a planning phase. No, did I roll for the slave catchers? No. Lantern phase, slave catcher. Slave catcher has to roll. Get dice, roll. Blue goes there. It's just 1 white. If I rolled more than 1 white, then this guy would have gotten captured, which would have been a little bit unfortunate. I'm going to buy 2 tokens. Again, the gray tokens are always going to be available. Actually, this token would also still be available while we're talking about it. And now we get to the action phase. Might be a tempting time to use my special ability, but maybe I still save that as long as possible. All right, I'm going to change this up for 5 1s. Not sure I want them. I really don't like these cards. Again, there's a card in there I really love. But I don't know if it makes sense trying to wait for it. I mean, there's still 2 opposition cards in there. 9 cards, 2 opposition cards. I mean, if I remove 3 at a time, but the ability to just jump 2 directly from a plantation into Canada is so strong. All right, I'm going to spend the 2. Actually, if I was going to do this, I would have spent 1 less. Put this here. I got no new information. I could spend the 2, and I would have bought this instead. I could spend the 2. I get a token for 3 less. I'll take this token now, and then I could swap the places of 2 cards. Let's swap these 2. That way Calhoun will come off now, and I don't have to worry about him affecting how much money I'm getting for blue cities. So Uncle Tom's Cabin was the abolitionist card I bought this turn. And again, I want to get through this deck because, again, there's a card I'm looking for. So when those 2 go away, that'll be actually helpful. I just know that there's 2 more opposition cards. It is what it is. I only dealt with 1 opposition card from the first round, which is helpful. So that's done. I could only use 2 of these 3 tokens, even though I have 3. Again, one of the characters has special ability. They can use 3 tokens 1 round. I have 4 slaves coming in. Remember, we know it's 4, 4, 6, 4, 4, 5, 6, 6. So this is not going to get easier. Which is I want to save that ability as long as possible. We only have room for 5 more lost slaves, so that's also something to start being worried about. Mm-mm-mm. All right, I'm going to use this move for 2. Really just jammed up here. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, the way the board's set up and those sketchers, man, it really gets crowded quick. Two. I'm gonna move 2 spaces each. So this guy's just gonna go in from there. So 1, 2, and then I'm gonna go 1, 2. Triggers the purple. And then I'm gonna move 4 slaves 1 space each. So 1, I get $1. I can move 3 more. He goes up here. Two, I get $1. He comes down. 3 goes there. I'm going to spend $1 to go 4 over there. So I did not go to any blue cities, small or large, so didn't take any money from there. We have 3 slaves right in position to go in, which will be helpful with that. I think that's about the best I can do. All right, so we're going to add 2 slaves to the slave plantations. We get 2 more up there, so only room for 3 more. These move down. This is a 6er for sure. That's the slate. That's the market phase. Oh, I never used this. I gained a 1. I have my special ability $1. I would have moved 1 and then 2. We get $2. He goes up there. There's 1 less slave would have been on the market. 1 less slave would have had to go to the slaves lost. So I just forgot my once a round special ability here. So that's done. So again, I would have moved. I had an open space there. It's a no-brainer. It doesn't trigger anything. This guy goes there, triggers that up here. But we snuck him into the northern city of Boston. Oh, and he only gets $1 because of John Calhoun, which is again another reason to get rid of that jerk. So we're going to go to the lantern phase. I already did the market phase. Calhoun goes away. Nebraska goes away. These go over. Give me the card I want. Nope. Woof. That's super awful. And wow. Not the thing of dreams, kids. That's not exactly what I was looking for. Oh, these conductor tokens come back here. And remember, I still have this conductor token from the first time period as well. We're rolling the slave catcher dice. It's yellow, 3 blacks. So 1, 2, 3. We lose him. He goes onto the card. That's unfortunate. Doesn't do much to open up down here either. Might be a good time to trigger the special ability. We're going to the planning phase. I'm going to spend I'm going to spend 6 and get both of these. These cards came out. So add 2 slaves to each slave market card currently on the board. Resolve when removed. Having knowledge of when the slave trade would end, Georgia and South Carolina reopened trade and imported about 100,000 slaves between 1800 and 1808. Over here, we have Henry Box Brown. Move 1 slave from any plantation to a large northern city with no effect. Brown shipped himself to freedom in a box by wagon, railroad, steamboat, wagon, railroad, ferry, railroad, and wagon. Woof. That's a trip. And then Harriet Tubman moved 4 slaves 1 space each to do not trigger slave catchers. Tubman made 13 trips, rescuing over 70 slaves before the Civil War. All right. That number sounds low, but there could be something specific they're saying about that. That number sounds low. When that resolves, adding 2 more is just an absolute nightmare. I swear that Preacher has an ability where he could just take a card off and just absolutely not have to resolve anything on there. That'd be a strong argument for that. But I don't know if I'm pot committed to, especially with that. I might have to stay here another round to really hope that card comes off that I'm looking for. There's a specific card with a specific thing. Reopening trade. There's still going to be 3. Reopening trade. All right. Well, interesting. Do I want to do the special ability? Probably. Losing that 1 that was right there is pretty unfortunate. All right, we're going to spend, well, we're going to get $1 and move 2 slaves 1 space each. I think we just move this guy in. And this guy in. I'm going to spend the $2 now to move 1 slave from a plantation to any large northern city with no effect. I'm going to go from here to Chicago. That is a northern city. There's no effect, so I don't get the money for that, but at least he's up there. Now think about how many movement points that saved me. Because, again, the way things kind of slow each other up. Yeah, man, if I can get 5, the fundraising's been a problem. I'm really short on money. I'm really short on money. Let's get some money then, kids. All right, we're going to do this. I'm going to spend this token to get 4 movement points. So 1, I get 2 money. This goes down. This goes over. Can't move him again. I wish there was like a side where it's, hey, move, didn't move. I think that'd be helpful. But 1, 2, I get $1. That's connected to blue. Oh, nope, don't do that. 1, 2, we'll get him in. 3, I get $1. We move blue. And then 4, I get $1. We move blue back, and we move purple. We're gonna go this one, move 2 slaves, 2 spaces each. I'm gonna spend $1 to move 2 here. 1, 2, I get 2 money. That triggers brown. It's 1 and 2. I'm gonna get $1. Move blue. I can't use another token because I've already used 2. And I think I used my special ability here. Can I get up to 10? Is the real question. I do think I want to buy that support token, although I'm really hoping that there's only 6 cards left. I'm hoping that the card I want is in there. I have left myself no room in the inn here. So I'm going to use my special ability. I get 5 movement points to divvy up as I want. So 4 points left. Three points of movement left. I get $1. This moves up here. And then I'll go 1, 2, 3. I'll get $2. Is that 10? It is not. Woof. $2. He'll move down. He'll move over. I can't even buy the support token. That's not good. This would have come back here. Uh-oh. We're in trouble. All right. We're going to go to the market phase. 2 are going to come here. 1 goes here. 2 are lost. So we only have room for 2 more to be lost. This comes down. This comes down. This flips over. It's a 6er. We're going to go to the lantern phase. Both of these removed. These move over. Can I get the card I want? 1 guy from a northern slice directly to Canada. 1 slave from a large northern city directly to Canada. I did not get it. Oh, that's so bad. John Brown could help me out. Maybe. I have a 1 in 3 chance of that being the card I want. This is not going well. All right, slave catcher phase. Rolling these. Yellow, white. 1, 2, 3. Wow, that yellow slave catcher gets me again. Gets me again. So I need to make room for 6. I only have room for 2 up there, so I minimum need to make room for 4. And it's a minimum. So I have to plan. I'm going to have to spend 6 to buy. Well, I'll spend 3 to buy that one. I still have the special ability back. It's not as good as it was. And I think we figure out. Nah, man, I can't. Ah, so bad. Yeah, I think I'm kind of committed to going one more round on this level, which is really bad because they're going to he's going to add 4 more slaves to the board. So again, we've read John Brown last turn. Anthony Burns. Burns' arrest and trial under the Fugitive Slave Act brought protests and riots. Burns eventually settled in Canada. Oh, Canada. Ah. I don't know what's better here. If I do Tubman, then I'm only seeing 2 of those 3, and hopefully I just can avoid the last opposition card. That'd be nice. I save John Brown for next turn. Hope to get super lucky. Yeah, I think I do that. So let me buy Tubman. I get them with 4 slaves, and we're not triggering slave catchers. But we do get paid, which is super awesome. Tubman was a beast. So we're going to get $1, $1, $2, $2, 3, and spend $1, 4. Now we're going to start triggering slave catchers again. I still have 2 tokens to use. I'm going to get 4. Do I want to get this one instead? Probably. No, not really. We're going to get 4 movement. This goes back here because it's gray. This should be back here. Nope, it's still there. So $1, $1, 2. Oh, and I trigger yellow. Because again, we're triggering slave catchers again. Oh, when did he get off? I messed up. 1, 2, 3. That was on blue. Put that back. My bad. Now that I take the $1. 1. I took the $1. So yeah, sorry, but I definitely messed that up. The yellow, it should have gone 1, 2, 3, not 1, 2, 3. So I had a dude there. He stays, which is great. Arcady, ooh, Freedom, the Underground Railroad. I love this game. Brutal though. Joey, hey everybody, just joining the stream. I see it started about 90 minutes ago. What is an average game length for this one? Sorry if already discussed. This is my second go, so you could without the chat and stuff. This is under an hour, for sure. Gregor started after the first game and then the failure. I'm not bringing much to the conversation, but I've just back from work. I'm cooking in my defense. Joey says, "Oh, okay." Oh, okay. I was wondering too. Jester says I would guess about an hour to play it. Just depends on how fast you can make your discussions. And Arcady, you still want to arm the little cubes and kill the slave hunters. Yes, 1 or 2 hours when you get too stressed out. um, yeah, it's not that long of a game for sure. So 1, 2, I get $1 and move him. 3, I gotta make room for 5. And 4 triggers him. I can move 3 more. 1, 2, 3, and then I can get $1 using this action and move 1 more. I'll move this one. I get $2, but we trigger that one. I'm actually in really good shape with getting the 7 slaves. My biggest thing is, can I get the card I want to make this less punishing? Again, I already have 6 up here. I'm about to add 1 more. That's going to be really bad. All right, so market phase, we're adding 2 here, 2 here, 1 up here. This is off. This come down. There's no more slave market cards. I only have 2 rounds to get this done. This comes up. We have to add 2 more slaves to each market card, so that's a pretty gross opposition card for us. These shift over, and if it's not the cards I'm going to want, we're in serious trouble. Ugh. The card I want is going to be at the bottom of the deck, isn't it? Ugh. Forget this, dude. I'm using this one. This is the one I wanted. The Armor Star Rebellion. That's really bad. Yeah, the way that shuffle came out was really just with my with my strategy at this level. That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. I mean, I don't know if we win even if it came out the right way, but this being at the bottom is absolutely gross. But I'm gonna pretend like it wasn't. Like, I'm just curious. This is more for educational purposes only. We're gonna roll the slave catcher dice. We now have 8 coming in, which is really bad. This goes over. We're in the planning phase. I'm going to spend the 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to get these 2 again. In the action phase, I'm going to do the conductor action, get $1. And then we're going to move 1 slave 1 step. We're going to move him here. That triggers that. I'm going to now spend 2 to do John Brown. I'm going to spend 5 to get the second support token. And then we resolve this card, not an opposition card. Retrieve 1 lost slave from the slave's lost. I can place it back in a large northern city. Well, that's nice. We'll put that dude there. So the drinking gourd is a reference to the Big Dipper constellation that is the northern sky. So that's the kind of stuff I wanted last game with that card. I know Armor Star Rebellion's there. That's great. I'm going to get 7 at the Canada. The problem is there's no way I'm going to open up 6 spots in my plantations this round. That's not happening. So you really want the Armor Star Rebellion to come out early in that deck. If it comes out late, I don't really know how you'd be able to win at the enhanced difficulty I'm playing at. So there's definitely a bit of luck to that. But I don't know. It doesn't really bother me in this game, just considering what this game represents more than other things. Although if I can get the... Sorry, I had a hair that was bothering me. So now we are officially working in the 3rd time error. But yeah, having the fact that we added 6. I mean, the other nice thing is if the Armor State comes out early, and that's the card I want, then we could end this time period early and deal with that many fewer opposition cards. As it is, that didn't come together, and now we're gonna have to. Since I can't win in this round, we're gonna have to find a place. Because you can't win to the end of a round, I'm gonna have to find a place for 16 more slave cubes, and that's just, even with that Armor Star Rebellion card, that's just not happening. I mean, this Armor Star Rebellion card is such a game changer. Basically you could take 2 cubes off the slave market card and you put them up in Canada, and you're like, okay, thank you very much. That's really helpful. I mean, John Burns is kind of a swing for the fences move that I think you kind of have to take at this level. But I mean, if we're just playing this out, I mean, I could do. Oh man, I could move 4. So 1, he's free. Oh. 2, I'm just trying to make space. No, I mean, it's a silly though. 1, 2, I get $1. Blue and yellow both activate. 3, I get $2. Brown and purple both activate. And 4 will get you out of there. I have this. I can move 2 slaves, 2 spaces each. We can go 1. Oh, orange activates. We can go 1 and pay $1, and then Yeah, I'm super toast this phase. Two, I get a dollar. Purple and blue both activate, but once we get to the slave market phase, I'm legitimately 4 spaces shy. So that's not gonna work. But yeah, again, you get the Armistead Rebellion. You get 7 on there. It's 2 less. Things become a little more reasonable, but just needed some things or 2 less. Yeah, if you get the slave rebellion out there, and I don't have to worry about adding 2 slaves to each card, you can kind of see how it comes together. But this is not an easy game at this level. In contrast, that I do think when you're here and now I can fit 12 slaves and I only need to freeze 5, that's a much easier game. I mean, all of a sudden, it's not hard to get the 5. You do have a little bit more opportunity to blitz. The fact that you have room for 12, which means you don't lose until your 13th, all of a sudden that becomes a lot easier. You know, you could. I mean, again, there's 2 ways to enhance difficulty that I chose. There's a third way where you can add another support token, which I didn't choose. I don't think that's viable true solo. Whereas, again, if I had these 5 openings, I mean, that's 5 less lost slaves, right? So you have these 5 openings. You start with that. So if you wanted to do the harder side and start with 5 more openings, I think either one of those 2 adjustments makes for an interesting game. So you could start with this side and fill in the openings, or you could start on this side and have 5 more openings. I think both of those are pretty reasonable to think that I would have probably won one of these 2 games that way, if not both. It's like when you're enhancing it on both planes. I think you're making yourself a really hard game. But again, I don't mind that with this game at all. Um, that's not what this game is for me, right? So, I think if you're playing a game about slavery, I don't think there's anything wrong with playing it on a hard level and never winning, really. Um, Joey, I'm very familiar with John Brown from Ken Burns' Civil War miniseries. My dad bought it for me, and the narrator lulls me to sleep about 30 minutes after his involvement at Harper's Ferry. I restarted and probably watched it to that point about 5 times. I can never make it through. Are you getting Banished to Snakes from GMT Games? I'm probably out on most GMT stuff at this point, Jester. I don't have I don't have the bandwidth right now for too much more. I mean, I have Red Dust Rebellion coming. Uh, uh, Plum Island Horror is coming. I have All Good Things, which is the new expansion to the final expansion for Space Empires 4X. I mean, I've reached out to them to try to get a review copy of Space Core. It hasn't worked out. So like, I honestly, or Space Corp is a space. I think that actually is Space Corp. Um, I just haven't gotten to Space Empires 4X back on the channel. I'm sitting on Talon. I mean, right now GMT is taking a backseat for sure. So I don't know much about it though. So if you wanna try to sell me a Banish the Stakes, I'm happy to I'm happy to find out some more. Mike James, this game is tough. Brian Skollick, hi Greg, joined late. Is True Solo part of the original rules? Yeah, it absolutely is. And again, I really dig it. I don't think the game shines a lot at True Solo. I think there's gonna be more interesting mechanics and stuff that you can do co-op. And I think if you're playing at the harder levels, I think in some ways the game's too easy at the normal rules true solo, and then becomes very hard very quick if you do anything to enhance that. And I enhance the difficulty in 2 ways for this playthrough, or both these playthroughs. But I think ultimately this is a game that when I play it in the future, I'm going to be more likely to play it two-handed, uh, instead of just playing true solo. Brian, Jester, you can customize your amounts like 6 out, still have 10 spots available. Yeah, you definitely. There's a lot of things you can do to tweak it. I'm definitely, especially for the channel, I'm generally going to be someone who's going to play by the rules as written, unless there's really good reason. Then I'm going to vary from that. So, um, it's again, I just don't mind losing this one. I find it, you know, more interesting than that. You can definitely see, yeah, at some point you're just taking over the board and you run out of room to put dudes. The question is, can you manage that? And is this deck of cards coming out in such a way, like again, this Armorstad Rebellion Guard is this absolute game changer. being able to, and then again, John Brown, I feel like it sounds like a broken record, but like John Brown plus a card that works with him is an absolute game changer. Buying the support tokens in the middle of the action phase, I find is always good because you can really time it. Where again, you know how many opposite. Like again, that first round was this playthrough went better because I only faced one opposition card in that first round. The opposition cards that we got though were a little bit brutal. I mean, that two slaves to each slave marker card is on the board is uh is rough. I mean, this icon, if you're starting with this filled up, like you're infusing somewhere between 4 to 6 more slaves, depending on where you get it in the game. If you get lucky and you get it late, only 2 more slaves. But late game is like when you're probably least able to deal with those 2 extra slaves. So it's a lot to factor in, for sure. Now that's one of the advantages of the preacher. Again, the preacher is somebody else who I think could be viable true solo, or that at the higher levels though, it's gonna be still be really hard. But what he can do is he can buy a card from the market. Now some of them say they can't be bought, but he can buy a card from the abolitionist queue, or I'm sorry, he can discard a card from the other. He's gonna need to buy it. He's once a game, he can just flip him. He flips over, and he just takes a card out of the abolitionist queue. You don't have to trigger it at all, which is a really strong ability, for sure. But again, I think you're probably going to want to see you're going to probably see a little bit more dynamic and tough decisions in a co-op game, for sure. Brian, as the history of this game really intrigues me, and it can lead to assignments on each of the abolitionists on the cards to do a little bit more research. I could dig it. I'm really curious. Again, I've never heard a bad word said about this game, and considering it was designed, the design team seems to be all white. Like that does stand out to me. Like it seems like they did a really good job in handling the subject matter, in in a sensitive way, in an intelligent way, and creating a game that makes you. I think it was like Colin from One Stop Color Shop. I watched a little bit of his playthrough from like 3 years ago on this, and like you really like find yourself caring. Like it's like losing a cube in this game is like there's a reality, right? There's a reality of what that signified historically and what that represents. So it's a heavy game. I mean, it's a heavy emotionally, not mechanically. Mechanically, it's pretty straightforward. There's enough decision space to keep you interested, for sure. Uh, $2 super chat from Brian. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Valiant effort. That's what I'm trying to do here. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow with Gaia. So we'll be in a land far, far away. I got the Gleans, so that's going to be an interesting playthrough. They're notoriously a little bit weak, but should have a good time with them in a true solo game. But next week we'll be back with the next chapter in Cloudspire. We got another Spirit Island. We're gonna finally finish off the Horizon Spirits, and then I gotta figure out what the heck I'm doing next. There's a couple of scenarios I might want to revisit. Multi-handed, um, forbidden powers, whatever, multi-terrains. I mean, varied terrains, forgotten powers. Like, there's definitely some scenarios I think I could kind of shelf a little bit more. But there's a lot of ideas I have with Spirit Island. There's no shortage of ways to play that game right now with the spirits that keep throwing at us. So sorry if I'm a little, yeah. Trying to bring the energy up. So, not the game for that. So, but it's a good one. I would if anyone's like interested in this game, if you could find it for a decent price, and it has some meaning to you, I could see it. If like you're if the subject matter is like just a total miss for you, or this isn't the kind of thing you want from your games, I totally get that too. So it is what it is. For me, this was kind of on my holy grail list for a few years, and just kept hearing about it, and glad to pick it up, and curious how it kind of fits into my gaming group if it ever gets to the table, or if it's just like a solo game that I'm going to pull off the shelf, even if it's like once a year. This is a game that if I play once a year, I'm fine with it staying and earning its spot on the shelf, um, just because of kind of what it represents and what it is. So that's about that. This was fun, like a certain kind of fun. This was satisfying. This was a satisfying playthrough, uh, despite the two losses. And thanks for a really engaging chat, and some really good questions. So that's cool. I will see everyone tomorrow. If you can join me then, if you're into Gaia. If not, I will see you next time you tune in for a solo playthroughs live stream or a VOD after the fact. Any questions, comments, epiphanies, please put them in the comment section below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And until next time, happy gaming.
Solo.